Good morning, everyone. My name is Bridget Richardson. I'm the Assistant Director of Ecumenical and Pastoral Initiatives at the Nesty Center for Faith and Culture at University of St. Thomas in Houston. And I'm super pumped. I'm here today with my good friend, Vivian Cabrera. She's a University of St. Thomas alumna, and she's also the Assistant Editor for Digital Media at America, the Jesuit Review. So Vivian, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Oh, of course. I'm so excited for this. Oh.
Yeah, and Vivian is in New York. So, Vivian, how about you tell us just a little bit about what that's been like for you, where you're at, and we'll get into your job and some of those things and how it's affected your job.
Yeah, for sure. So I am based in Manhattan. So it's been actually one of the less hard hit areas. I think a lot of the cases of COVID have hit the outer boroughs, but I am on the Upper West Side. And it's been a little strange because you definitely see kind of New York isn't really what we know New York to be. There's people aren't taking the subway, people aren't commuting, no tourists. So it's very sad, especially because I moved to New York for the culture, the people, and not having that is it's really it's very strange. It's very, very odd. But I have two roommates, so we're here at home, hunkered down, kind of co-working, since we all kind of do different things. But yeah, it's a very strange time. Also being away from family, where all my family is in Texas. So having to connect with them virtually has been something that we've been trying to do.
And how long have you been in New York now?
This is my third year here. Yeah.
Okay, so what has that been like with your family, trying to only connect with them in this way? And they're probably, a little nervous for you, but you seem to be okay.
Yeah, and I think it's especially difficult when all you hear about New York is what you read in the news. So I call my parents every day, and they're just like, "Are you okay? Like, don't go outside." And I live right next to Central Park, so I'm able to go out for exercise or fresh air and walks. And I don't encounter a lot of people. So that's kind of been like a saving grace in a way. But so I'm often having to assure them that we're fine, that me and my roommates are all healthy, that we're okay. But yeah, it's been particularly difficult. It's difficult to begin with because I'm so far away and they just, we're very close, but especially more now that like if you watch a lot of news, and it can kind of be very like panic inducing, I think.
Yeah, and so how have you been trying to, stay away from maybe the more panicky aspects of what's going on since you're there and witnessing it, but then also seeing the news's presentation of all of it?
When this first all started, I think it was about a month ago. I've been at home for a month. And it was difficult because I would read a lot of, like, my job requires me to be like online often. So I would just read a lot of news, like what's happening, updates from Italy, from what's happening here in New York. And it would cause a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. And it'd be the last thing I read before bed. It's like, oh, all these people have new cases or have died. And then I just can't sleep, and I'm having a difficult time kind of taking it in. And it's gotten better now that like time has gone by, and I know now not to check the news or refresh the COVID updates. I'd maybe do it like twice a day, or like tune into Governor Andrew Cuomo's press briefing once a week to kind of see what's happening. But I've learned to distance myself from all the news, just for like peace of mind and like kind of for my mental health. Because if that's kind of all you're absorbing and reading, it can really take a toll. So I've encouraged my family to do the same. It's like, maybe don't. And because it comes in stages, and New York has been in it for far longer than Houston, I can kind of see them cycling through what I've already gone through, of like glued to my news feed and then slowly kind of backing away. And they're like a week or two behind. So they're learning slowly to back away from being glued to the news cycle, right?
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective to see it not in the future, but to take that look of, okay, y'all are going through this now, but let me help you through it a little bit.
Yeah, like here's what helped me get through the first week, the first 2 weeks. And then it slowly, like I think it started on the coast, and then it's kind of moving into like the Midwest or the central United States. And so that's been interesting to see the different cities kind of respond. Yeah.
Okay. And for your job, can you describe a little bit of what you do and how that's even changed since you've been at home for a month?
Yeah. So the only thing that's changed is that I get to work from home now. But my job is I'm a assistant editor for digital media, which basically means I manage our social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, run our newsletters, and kind of work on headlines for all of our content. So we're a print magazine twice a month. We put out a new issue, and then all of our content also goes online. So we've worked pretty well digitally, so it hasn't been too big of a change to kind of move to all online stuff. I do like missing my colleagues and stuff, but as far as like work, it's been pretty smooth. Our video and podcast, we've been kind of upping our product. So that's been, I think, the most difficult transition of like, how do we don't have the luxury of having our studio. So how do we have home studios in each of our homes? But I think didn't take us very long to kind of switch gears for that mentality.
Okay, and for those who have never heard of America, can you describe what it is, like what the mission is of it, and what the voice is that it's trying to be in the United States?
Yeah, so we're the Jesuit Review for Faith and Culture, and we kind of live at the intersection of the world and the church, explaining kind of the church to the world and the world to the church. So we'll often do a lot of like arts and culture reviews. We have faith and focus essays. So our content as this has gone on is a lot of people want to know, like, how do you live your faith out during this crisis? Like, where is God? What does it mean that we can't like go to mass anymore? So we've had a lot of thoughtful pieces on, because we're all experiencing the same thing. So we've had a lot of pieces from contributors talking about like how it's difficult being quarantined with my kids, or what it means to continue believing in God when you don't understand what he's doing. So that's kind of a lot of what we're seeing. And it's during difficult times, people like want to turn to God more if they don't understand. So I found that is our ministry right now, is helping people like deconstruct what's happening, or kind of like process what is happening in the world. And we're also like, the editors are going through the same thing. So I really do see it as like a ministry and a service to our readers, that we're on the same boat. We're like, we don't know what this means, but if you come to read our content, we can like go through this together.
And what have you seen in your content that not only kind of opens your mind on how you do that, like how you live your faith during this time, but also if you're that connection point, people's expectations of what they're seeing is one thing, but when they get there and you're asking similar questions, I feel like it'd be kind of a beautiful experience to be on that road together. But what have you seen in the content that you're producing and like the needs of the people?
I think that's a really good point. One of our podcasters wrote a goal. I think we're very honest with like, we miss going to mass, but what do we do? Like, for example, I wasn't comfortable. I wasn't ready to live stream a mass right away. It just made me really sad to like see mass and know that I couldn't participate. So I wouldn't do that for like a week or two. And we're kind of honest about that. We're like, yeah, I did a home liturgy. One of our hosts, she mentioned that like, by the time of our Father, she just burst into tears. So I think we share that we are also struggling, and not so much like, here's what we can teach you, but like, here, like, journey with us as like we go through this together, and talk about how like it really is difficult not being with your family around Easter, or just like how difficult it can be to be connected online all the time when you kind of need a break for your own like mental health, right? So I think just the honesty of like telling people that we're also like going through it, and we want to walk with you, not so much like, here's everything you can learn about it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Because I even around Good Friday, I heard a really beautiful talk about how we need to journey together in this suffering, and not just go straight toward Easter Sunday and the celebration, but to have that time of lament. And we're in a weird time where we're an Easter people, but we're still in this age of lament in a way. So how have you seen that journeying in your, in the people who are consuming your content? How have you seen that accepted, or maybe not accepted?
Yeah. It actually reminds me of one of the liturgies I attended this past weekend. We were talking about, let me see if I get this straight, of just like acceptance of, I think, who was it? One of the disciples, or maybe Magdalene. I can't remember. I'm going to get this wrong. But like how they just accepted that I think like Jesus would like die, I believe, and just living in that acceptance without like expecting, like they just didn't know, like they knew but they didn't know, right? So we have to like live in that not knowing what tomorrow will bring and just living in the acceptance of like, well, this is our reality kind of like today. We can't do anything about it. And yeah, we are an Easter people, but we don't know when Easter will come, right? And so just something really beautiful about like not having, of being like kind of powerless. And it reminds me of an article that one of the Jesuits at work, Brother Joe Hoover, wrote about like the God of the pandemic, that like right now we really want to do something. Like we, as Christians, like we're called to help our brothers and sisters in like very like physical, practical ways. And all we can do right now is stay home. But that's really not satisfying for people who like are engaged in public ministry. But he mentioned how like right now is a really great reminder of really how powerless we are and how it's testing like how much we really trust kind of God. Because we can't do anything anymore. Like we're really just stuck. And it's a good opportunity for us to reflect on like that trust, what that means when like maybe our deepest desire is to go and like help people, but the only people who are allowed to or can are like our first responders, our nurses and doctors. And so that can be really difficult. And I've been like sitting with that, praying with it and trying to figure out how that applies to me. Of just like, wow, I am powerless. Okay, here's one day at a time, right?
Yeah. And how have you dealt with that, to your powerlessness and all of it? Because you're still, I mean, I like how you mentioned that you're trying not to be as connected. Like you're not reading the news before bed, even though your job is highly connected in terms of digital media. So how have you kind of parsed through all of that with doing your work and with staying true to who you are and knowing your own powerlessness?
I think distractions help a lot. For example, one of my Lenten penance was I'd given up my headphones as a like opportunity to engage deeper in like the silence of like in myself and find a way to kind of focus more. But I found during Lent that was really hard when all I needed was a distraction from the real world, right? So I went back to that and discovered like a prayer app, which is how I was able to pray instead of like sitting down and writing, just because I was too distracted to do anything but listen to the rosary being repeated through my headphones, right? So I found like I've relied on that app, or just like taking time away and scheduling time to just like watch TV or watch something that like just makes me feel good, so that I can recharge. Or for example, I love to cook, so I'll spend a few hours making something new. And then for those few hours, I don't remember what's happening. And then I'm able to go back when I'm called to go back into kind of the reality of what's happening right now.
Yeah. And that makes sense, to that recharge, because people think if you're at home, you're working from home, you don't really get out. You don't need a recharge, but it's like.
Especially if like you're an introvert. Like I'm an introvert, so I do love being at home. But it still feels like if my work time is scheduled and my social time is scheduled online, and so I'm just jumping from like work meeting to more work and then FaceTiming family or have to catch up with a friend, then my whole day's gone and I feel so drained. And I really need time to not look at my screens and just watch an episode of whatever show that I've decided to catch up on. Or when I'm done with that, like picking up a book that allows me to escape into a different world as well.
So just to kind of finish things up, how would you say that that you and your staff try to keep your togetherness and your connection with one another, even though you're not together? Because I think especially when you're doing like work like y'all do with digital media, and also being that connecting point for the American culture and Catholic culture, like how do y'all stay connected with one another to make sure that that is still strong?
Yeah, that can be really difficult, especially if we tend to be busier because everything's online now. But I think we've been intentional about making sure we like ask each other about non-work related things, or just like being like, hey, do you guys want to like have a happy hour like tomorrow after work, and we'll all zoom in and talk about. I mean, obviously, like the situation comes up, like how are you coping? How's your family or kind of your neighborhood? So that does come up. And we also have like Google Hangout like lunchtime, that if you just want to eat with someone who's not at your home, so it feels like we're in the lunchroom, we'll do that. Yeah, but it's really important to be intentional about reaching out to the people that you already just talked to when you're in the office, right? Like, hey, I'm just here to say hi, not to like ask you about anything. How are you doing? So we try to keep that in mind. It can be really hard because we're just like work, and everything's kind of like now and sudden. But I think that is so important to not lose those connections. So yeah, we try just thinking about how to connect with other people.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, if someone wants to read the content that America produces, where do they go?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are americanmagazine.org. We also have a lot of great videos, America's YouTube channel. Yeah, and follow us on social media. I have to plug it in because that's my job. So if you don't already, you should definitely do that on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And then you'll know that I'm the one who manages that. So that's fun too.
Sweet.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Vivian. And Vivian, God willing, is hopefully going to join us on the University of St. Thomas campus in August to do a dialogue about her work and also her journey from University of St. Thomas to where she is now. So Vivian, you are definitely a shining star in the University of St. Thomas stratosphere. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye.